Hey friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today is my birthday and I'm gonna get vulnerable with you guys. I have a problem and it is these gorgeous pinks with a blue shimmer and a dainty holo. Obviously I'm being a little sarcastic, but at the same time I'm kind of not joking because why do I have so many of the same kind of polish? The obvious answer is that they are not all the same, as you can kind of tell by this lineup, but once we get over here, it's a little questionable, but I will save more of my thoughts for the end. For now, let me just show you the swatches. The first polish I have here is Bee's Knees Lacquer Spread Your Wings, which was actually from HHC earlier this year. I think it was like March or April that I picked this up. I'm 99% sure I saw Caitlin swatch this one and I just immediately fell in love. It is just a beautiful peachy pink kind of base with this greenish to aqua shifting shimmer, and this one has reflective glitter, so naturally it's going to call to me. I just love how ethereal and dainty this one is, especially, but it's still very sparkly because of that reflective glitter. This one definitely has the most warm peachy pink kind of base, but I feel like it still doesn't look too different compared to the other shades, probably because the shimmer is just so overpowering. The next shade I have is Cancer from Whatcha Indie Polish, which was another HHC buy, I think back in June or July. And I know, having two back-to-back HHC polishes, it seems like I might be shopping there more than I let on, but it's really not true. I very rarely will pick up something from HHC because I just prioritize PPU, but I could not skip this one. I just thought it was so beautiful. It just has another super dainty, sheer, ethereal pink base filled with this glowing green to aqua to cobalt shifting shimmer. I apologize because I'm gonna sound like a broken record since these more or less all have the same kind of descriptors. But yeah, this one being inspired by the Cancer zodiac, which is my moon sign and my most dominant sign, I feel like I just resonated with this polish so much, so I just had to have it. So these next two polishes technically shouldn't really belong in here because the shimmer is green and not blue. I mean, it shifts to blue, but the shimmer head on is definitely green, but I feel like they just look so close to the rest of the lineup that I could make an exception for these. This very first one is Pahlish from Pahlish Pickup last year. It's called I Want to Hold Your Ham, and it just was one of my instant favorites. I just love how glowy this one is. It has a similar peachy kind of pink base with this green to aqua to blue shifting shimmer, but the main difference in this one is that it has the silver holographic flaky. And the other polish that I'm including for honorary reasons, I guess, is Great Lakes Lacquer The Village Chief, which shout out to my bestie for gifting me this polish last year. It was just another immediate love at first sight kind of moment. Just seeing it in the bottle, again, it leans this like peachy pink kind of color with this really vibrant lime green sort of shimmer that shifts to aqua and blue in more extreme angles. This one is just a shimmer formula. There's no holo or reflective glitter or flakies or anything like that, but the shimmer is just so incredibly intense. It is just so glowy, so ethereal and magical. It just reminds me of wearing cellophane on your nails, which I love. Now back to the blue shimmers. This next one is Mooncat's A Midsummer's Dream, which came out a couple of years ago in their Once Upon a Fairy Tale collection. No surprise, just from the name alone, I'm gonna be gravitated to it. But I wanna say this was one of my very first like pink polishes with a blue shimmer, at least in this like lighter pink category. I might be wrong about that, but this polish just feels so special because I feel like it's just what invigorates generated this love for this type of combination. The shimmer in this doesn't even shift, it's just this electric blue, and the base in this one is a little bit on the pearly side, but it's still so magical to me. Then I have Phoenix's Chibi, which was another Pahlish pickup buy. This one was from a few months ago, and again, I just remember seeing Caitlin swatch this one and I just lost my mind. This definitely looks very, very similar to some of the Pahlishes I already swatched, but I feel like this one has a little bit more of a brighter, almost pastel neon kind of base in a way. Maybe that's a little too generous, but just by looking at it in the bottle, you can definitely tell the pink is just a lot more vibrant than the others in my lineup, but on the nail, it's still definitely very sheer. But I do think on 3 coats, the base just builds up a bit more, so you see that like punchy pink color underneath all of that glowy shimmer. It is just so magical, so ethereal. I love it so much. And the next polish I have is Cirque Colors True Love's First Kiss, which I shared not too long ago in my October picks video because this one just gave me such Libra energy, mainly for the name, but definitely the color as well. It's just so romantic and playful with this kind of bubblegum, cotton candy, pink jelly base. And this one does have a blue shimmer, but you can already tell it is so much more subtle compared to the other polishes I shared. But the plus side is that this one is one of their shimmer graphics, so this has so much holo and sparkle. I know it doesn't really look super special under my desk lighting, but it is just so twinkly in real life. This next polish is my most recent addition. This is Atomic Polish's A Day of Fallen Night, which is from PPU a couple of months ago, I think in August. If you watch my PPU wishlist videos, you know that I was struggling with this one because I knew I already had some shades similar to it in my collection, but I was just so weak for this shade. I just needed it, and I am so happy to have it. I know I said that I was going to sound like a broken record, but it is especially true for this shade and the following 3 or 4, where they're all these like really cool toned pink jelly kind of bases with this really bright icy aqua kind of shimmer that shifts to this cobalt blue in indirect light and with a holographic sparkle. But I would say that the holo is a lot more packed in this shade. The next polish I have is Nailed It's Library of Dreams from PPU, I want to say 2 years ago at this point. It was from the Dreamscapes theme, and I just absolutely loved that month, and this was easily one of my top favorite purchases from that whole year, honestly. It is definitely very, very similar to the last shade. I will be the first to admit it. But the main difference in this one is that the holographic flakes are a lot more sparse. I don't know how well you can tell. I will obviously have a collage at the end to show off the differences a little better. And maybe I would say that the shimmer in this one is even more icy, like it's a little bit more white based or something, like slightly less blue, if that makes sense, but they definitely are very similar otherwise, to the point that I guess they could pass for dupes. But again, the main difference is just the amount of flakies, where they're definitely present in this, but just not as packed as Atomic. This next shade is Mooncat's Moonrise from last year's Midnight Rodeo collection, and this is another lilac-y orchid pink kind of jelly base with a very glowy blue shimmer. You can probably tell right away too that the shimmer in this one is a little bit on the darker side, like it's not that same icy aqua kind of color, but it is still just as glowy, especially because the base in this is definitely more of like a true jelly kind of finish, so it has this really beautiful squishiness to it. This is just another classic that I was like, I already had this in my collection, but I still had to pick up the Atomic because, I mean, you can see for yourself, like, they're not dupes. This one I feel leans a little bit more on like the purpley pink side. The shimmer in this one, because it's cobalt, also kind of shifts to this like purple color in indirect light. And of course, I had to include ILNP's Flower Child from this year's Wildflowers collection earlier in the spring. I don't think you guys understand, well, actually you probably do because I'm so dramatic, but just the gasp that I let out when I first opened the email that showed, like, you know, the little swatches of the collection. This one just took my breath away because again, it is a glowy blue shimmer in this gorgeous pink jelly base. I feel like ILNP made the shade for me, and I know that's delusional, but I'm just gonna choose to believe it because this is quite literally the prettiest polish I've ever seen. The holo in this one is so pretty too. I love it. And the last polish I have is also from ILNP. This is Glowstick from the Electric Summer collection just a couple of months ago. And I know I'm pushing it with this one because it is definitely a bit darker than the others in my lineup. It also leans the most like in the purple category, but I feel like there's still a decent amount of pink. Like there were some true purple shades in this release, but this one I would say is almost like a lilac-y, dark orchid kind of color, especially if it's built up in 3 coats as seen here, but I feel like on 2 coats it leaned a little more pink. Either way, I feel like it was just so similar to Flower Child and the rest of the shades in my lineup, so I just had to include it, especially because it's a magnetic, which I think is so fun for this color combination. And while I do normally love the velvet technique, I feel like I prefer this one with a cat eye. And finally, here is my collage. I think it is just so beautiful. I obviously adore all of these shades, and I love how it's pretty evenly split too, with the top half mainly being the peachy pink kind of bases with these slightly more greenish minty kind of shimmers that still shift to blue in extreme light, and then the rest of them are the traditional cooler toned pinks with those aqua blue shimmers. I just think they are so gorgeous, and I'm sure so many of you will look at this and be like, yeah, it makes sense. And I have a little bonus collage of all of these shades in indirect light, which I think is where they just truly glow. Maybe with the exception of Cirque's True Love's First Kiss, you can just see how the shimmer in that one is just so subtle compared to the rest of them, but it's still very pretty in its own way. But yeah, I am just such a sucker for how the other shimmers glow and have this like cellophane fairy wing type of vibe. It is just my favorite. So that wraps up my swatches of my kryptonite polishes. As always, I can't wait to hear what you think of these shades, if you have any of them in your collection and how many. I just thought it would be so fun to share some of my absolute top favorite polishes in my collection for my birthday, because you know I'm a certified pink lover, and I did already do a video on my favorite pinks, and I only shared like a couple of these because I feel like most of these were newer additions to my collection since that original video. And while there are some other pinks with blue shimmer that are kind of like hot pinks, whether they're Cirque's Say Chic or Mooncat's Merkitten, I feel like these specifically, where they're in this lighter pink kind of family, are my kryptonite, where anytime I see one, I'm just like, oh my god, I need it. But for some reason, I just don't feel the same sense of like regret or buyer's remorse with adding these shades to my collection the way that I do with other polishes, where, you know, if you're familiar with my wish listing kind of videos, I'm always thinking or just being reminded of polishes that I have in my collection. So I am just very careful to not dupe myself because I just don't have the room to expand. But for some reason, these shades just kind of go by their own rules, where they literally are my kryptonite, because when I see this soft pink base with a blue shimmer and a dainty holo, I'm just, my brain short circuits. But I am trying to get better. Like if you remember the Beau Revs polish pickup shade for this month, it basically was the same and I didn't get it. I didn't even click into the listing because I'm just like, I know that I have a dupe for this and I don't need it. So I am really proud of myself for that. But with the ones that I already have, I don't think I'm gonna be able to separate with any of them, which I know sounds a little crazy, but these are just my kryptonite, and they're just kind of like my favorite polishes to wear. Like if I was a nail polish, I would easily be like one of these shades. So yeah, I would love to know what your kryptonite polishes are and how many of them you have in your collection, if you ever like pulled them all out, because I think it's such a common kind of like problem in the nail community. And I definitely do my best to sort of like offset that by always talking about, you know, these potential dupes or showing comparisons in my videos. Nail polish is just so beautiful. So it's no surprise that we are just gonna be suckers for specific combinations or just colors in general. So I'd love to know yours down below, or just leave me any and all thoughts that you have so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.